abundance mindset is not necessarily telling you or making, like, you shouldn't believe that everything good is always going to occur. But what abundance mindset is that for all the good things that will happen to me, there's more than enough for good things to happen for everyone. Bill, you and I do the exact same thing, right? Every time you get a client, there is no part of me that thinks, well, dang, he just got a new client, so that's one less for me. Welcome to Money Therapy, where every dollar tells a story. And most importantly, so do you. I've explored thousands of podcasts discussing tools, tricks, and hacks to grow wealth. But when they failed me, I started asking why. The answer was clear. For a different output, I needed different inputs. So I shifted my focus from mere tools to more deeper sense of self. I started focusing on my identity, beliefs, values, goals, and vision. Once these were aligned, the same tools that were failing me before started to work. Join us at the intersection of life and money, where you are the ultimate asset in generating wealth for your life. Let's master our money, not be mastered by it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share for your weekly dose of money therapy, helping you turn wealth into a seamless part of your life's journey. Together, we're going to eliminate financial anxiety and hopelessness and gain confidence and clarity. Now, let's dive into today's episode of Money Therapy. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Money Therapy. We're glad you're here. And Bill,
Welcome back, dude.
Last week we were talking, and you kind of, part of the conversation about the zero-sum game really kind of started playing on this like scarcity versus abundant mindset. And so my brain has been stuck there this week, and that's what I would like to talk about. I want to introduce something how I work with people. And basically this is I break it down into 3 levels of kind of wealth creation.
Okay.
Right? There's level 1, wealth creation, level 2, wealth creation, and level 3, wealth creation. And what I see is most people participate in all 3 levels of wealth creation, but very, very few of them are masters of any of them. And the thing about it is you cannot master level 2 wealth creation until you have mastered level 1. And then you cannot master level 3 so you can participate in all 3. You can be like a white belt in all 3. You just can't really be a black belt in level 2, but not be a black belt in level 1. Okay. So I want to dig into that and kind of explain why abundance mindset is so important, right?
Yeah.
But 2 questions that I want to ask first. Like first, I think we need to define abundance mindset.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about the existence of scarcity mindset, scarcity thinking as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So Bill.
Yeah.
Help me understand. Like when I say abundance mindset, what do you start thinking about?
Well, I start thinking about, the first word that kind of comes to my mind is optimism. We kind of stumbled into this in the last episode where we killed the zero-sum game, and we kind of wound up in this place of, it's really about your mindset and perspective. And so, to me, abundance mindset is sort of being optimistic about the fact that whatever, maybe whatever positive things may be happening in your life will continue to happen. And having faith involves keep looking for good things that happen. Some people call it finding a silver lining or something like that. But I truly believe that like what you go looking for, you'll find. And so to me, abundance mindset is, okay, I have a lot of great things in my life that I'm grateful for. And I think that I know that those are going to continue. And so it's this optimism about life.
I think that there's a for me, I think there is a hard line that exists. The reason why there's abundance mindset and optimism is because they aren't exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think sometimes people shy away from like, oh, I don't, not all, not like they do. They think that they kind of immediately start to think, oh, he's talking about abundance mindset. He's just hopefully like optimist or endlessly optimistic, and he always thinks good things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Abundance mindset is not necessarily telling you or making like you shouldn't believe that everything good is always going to occur. But
Okay.
what abundance mindset is that for all the good things that will happen to me, there's more than enough for good things to happen for everyone. Bill, you and I do the
Yeah.
exact same thing, right?
Mm.
Every
Yeah.
time you get a client, there is no part of me that thinks, well, dang, he just got a new client. So that's one less for me,
Yeah.
right? That would be a scarcity thought. The
Yeah.
abundance mindset in me is when I see you winning, I champion you,
Yeah.
right? And so it doesn't mean I'm going to win every deal that comes that exists. It
Sure.
just means that when I win, I can win more and nobody has to go without.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about last week too, is that we were saying wealth can always be created.
Right.
Wealth may never be destroyed. It can be created. And it's kind of the same thing with the abundance mindset is, you know, abundance and all this, like gain and like progress can be created at all points in time, and it doesn't mean that somebody has to lose in order for somebody else to gain. We can all create abundance together.
Yeah. I think that the idea of abundance, you're right. You're hitting the nail on the head by saying like the idea that I'm going to create my wealth. I'm going to create my good fortune. I'm going to create and because as I create it, in fact, that probably other people are going to benefit from it as well. And
Right.
also, in fact, nobody has to lose because I'm creating something.
Sure.
Let's differentiate that from scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
right? Scarcity mindset isn't like a doomsday thing, right? It's just, to me, scarcity mindset is it can be a very beneficial defensive posture that we can take, but
Sure.
it can also become very toxic, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
and this is like sometimes when I listen to read a lot of books and listen to podcasts and talk to people about this stuff, there seems to be like a you have to have one or the other, like a dichotomy, a duality of scarcity or abundance thinking.
Yeah.
I want to offer that both should exist in your life,
Yeah.
right? There are
Yeah.
people out there who are very predatory, right? And they are trying to take what you have.
Yeah.
And in that sense, understanding what I have created is precious and I want to
Hmm.
protect what I have created. With that kind of understanding, that scarcity mindset, it can protect what I've created, but it can
Yeah.
also like keep my spidey sense going on people who are trying to be predatory and take what I have.
Yeah.
Right, where the toxic piece comes in is once we start living in that place too long or too often, we start to think, oh, what I have is all I got, everybody's trying to take what I have. We
Yeah.
leave the creativity mode and then we start trying to take from other people instead of create for the greater good.
Yeah, I think the balance there is key because scarcity mindset can keep you safe, but it can also keep you from growing. And so I think that it's very much a human tendency to want to protect what we have or what we've gained or what we've created or what we've earned, so to speak, if we're talking about money. We want to protect that at all costs, but kind of what we were talking about with, if you keep a bunch of money in a savings account, yes, it's guaranteed, but you're losing out on growth opportunities, right? In the market or all those other, podcasts that we've talked about that. But so I think the key is like to notice that instinctually we have a scarcity mindset because that's how we've survived for millennia. Um, but we should exercise abundance mindset so that we can keep growing as people and expanding our minds. And 100% one or the other. If you're 100% abundance, I kind of think about delusional. You can be considered delusional to some people. And if scarcity mindset, is too much as well. If you're 100% either direction. So I think when you look up on YouTube or you look up online, people who are talking about abundance mindset, they're always doing it in context, it seems like, of my tendency is to not do some of these things, but I force myself to think about it differently. And therefore, my life is better for it because of X, Y, and Z, or this is how my business grew, or this is how my relationships with family and friends grew. So I think it's noticing that there should be a balance there and that we have tendencies in both directions. And you get to choose which way you lean is kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I think it's good to practice both, but I think it's better. I think if we try to demonize like this whole scarcity thing and pretend like it hasn't protected us time and time again from vultures that are out there, if we give it, you can kind of give it too much power, because again, I think people are like, well, it's hard for me to have this like abundant thought because of like everything I've been through. I don't
Sure.
know how to like just live in this space. And again, what we're dismissing is this is not eternal and hopeful, like altruistic kind of optimism. What we're
Right.
saying here is like you can still be very abundantly minded and take losses. You can still go through hard things because they exist. What we're simply saying is the good things that can and will happen for you don't have to be at the detriment to someone else.
Yeah.
I think, when I think of some clients that are very like they live very healthily in the abundance mindset, but they also, like with some things, they're like, look, this is mine, I want to protect it, right? um,
Right.
but these clients, what they tend to do is once you start thinking abundantly, you start to have better relationships. And I think that is the true benefit of being having like the ability to be an abundant thinker, right? Like if something happens for me and it's really good for my business,
Right.
if you champion that, you're excited for me. We share our wins quite frequently. And I
Absolutely.
like sharing, and that creates a better relationship between us, where every time, if I came to you and every time I won something, I told you about it and you're like, man, that just means I'm not going to win this week.
Or
Right.
it's not
Like
going to last, dude.
I'd stop telling you. Right.
Yeah.
I'd stop. And then
And
you'd be
and that happens.
effectively
I mean,
isolating. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that definitely happens, and
And I
I've heard.
know I have a couple clients that are really struggling, and it's just because they're like the toxicity that exists. Like everyone around me winning, but I'm not. Like, when am
Yeah.
I finally going to get my shot? Like,
Yeah.
not with that attitude, you're not. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to want to help you. You're
Yeah.
trying. You can't do it alone.
I think there's a lot of ways that we try and describe kind of what we're talking about. I think there's like underlying principles here that basically can accelerate or enhance kind of our lives in different areas. And my mind goes to generosity. Like I truly like, if an abundance mindset, I think naturally goes to a generous, mindset and generous tendencies. And those people are definitely way more attractive than, they're way more fun to be around is what I mean. They're
Yeah.
not, um, they're a lot more fun to be around, and you look up to generous people most of the time, not people who are scared or are trying to keep everything under, for themselves, if you will. The other thing that comes to mind when we were talking about this episode is I've heard people say before that, like, when we're talking about, kind of like rich or poor, right? I've heard people say before, like, poor is a mindset, broke is just a situation.
Mm.
And the difference between those, which I think ties into abundance and generosity, is hope. You need hope in order for all those other dominoes to fall in. If I'm broke, but I have determination that, I'm gonna, start a business, or I'm gonna be generous for other people and help other people in some way in the marketplace. That's not, poor is a mindset, I think, and so if you have hope and you have determination, I think that leads also to abundance and then to generosity. And I think I think they all feed into each other. And I think that, again, with the balance, when we find ourselves in, a scarcity mindset, or whatever, maybe a negative thinking mindset, to feed into, it's kind of like a loop that you can enter into at any point. Maybe in order for me to start thinking abundantly, I need to start being more generous. And how do we do that? Like,
Yeah.
um, to I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I put in the notes, like, one of the things that I try and do is, like, if I'm at a restaurant, and I try and be generous with waiters and waitresses, right? And if but my rule is basically, no matter what happens, I'm going to tip 20%. Like, if it's really, really great service, I'm going to tip a little over, 20%, right? If it's terrible service, they look like they're just, they're being rude, or they just don't are not having a good day, I'm going to tip 20 or just over 20%, in an effort to, because in my head I go, well, maybe that'll, help them up for the day,
Yeah.
and so the tip is kind of selfishly for me, like, I can't control that other person or what happens, but I can control my thought process and my perspective on it. And I can choose the story in my head. So,
Yeah.
and I think that requires, again, to take it back, I think that requires hope. Hope leads to abundance, leads to generosity, those kinds of things.
So we can segue into how to kind of grow and actually start thinking more abundantly. But
Yeah.
before we do, I want to talk about these three levels of wealth, because I think that this will really tie in like how necessary abundant thinking is.
Okay.
Um, so level one, and this, like, so again, I've said this more than a few times on this show. Like, I look for evidence in the Bible at, like, for anything that I build for my clients. Like, I want to have things that, like, if nothing else, even if we don't agree or believe the same way, I like finding really old things that have endured for like thousands of years, right?
Sure.
Instead of like the hashtag that's 20 minutes old.
Yeah.
So when I look at how the world was created, the stories, and how generations have endured hardships that's very historically documented,
Yeah.
I start saying, okay, by design, in order for me to, like, become a black belt in level one wealth generation, what is evident is that I have to become a master of myself,
Okay.
and have the realization that I am the most, like, I have the highest capacity in my life to generate the most wealth that I could potentially receive. I am the single greatest wealth generating asset that I own,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Sure.
can look at that, some people, like, if you're measuring your lifetime earnings potential, take your salary, give yourself a 2 or 3% pay raise year over year, multiply it by the 40 years you're going to work, and that's how much wealth you can create. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you realize, well, if I stop just getting 3% raises but get 10% raises, or if I just start a new company and I get 100% raise, now all of a sudden you start saying, man, I can generate a ton of value, and for
Mm-hmm.
that value I can receive a ton of wealth,
Sure.
right? So as if we just focus in level one on mastering ourself, and
Mm-hmm.
part of mastering ourselves, defining, discovering our purpose, developing our tools, becoming an expert at what we do. Bill, there should be nobody that is more of an expert when it comes to the financial planning sphere than you, right? And if you understand how important it is for you to develop the tools within your created purpose, your designed purpose, if you align those things and you have vision and values that align and you start establishing goals to perpetuate yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Eventually, you know that you can get 1,000 yards further than whatever silly, unintentional direction that you were going, right? So,
Sure.
level one, mastering yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We as individual human beings have a capacity. Like, even if you maximize everything about yourself, you have a capacity. So, level two leadership or level two wealth generation is really about where you start to rely on a network, on a community, on your family, right? So think about it. This is why I say that you can't become a black belt at level two if you're a white belt in level one, because if you're trying to go and if you're a white belt in level one, you haven't mastered yourself fully, and then you go join this really great network of people, you're not going to be able to like multiply you become an addition, right? Not a multiply, not a factor multiplication, right?
Okay.
So when you're saying, oh man, like not only am I a master of everything about me, but I have this grand vision. Now you join a network of people and they say, hey, Bill, you're an expert at this, right? Yep. Hey, I need this. Cool. You're a master. You're the best. So now when you fit into that network, you're not just multiplying your potential, you're multiplying the group's potential. So it's a multiplication of a group of multipliers. So that's
Right.
where you get that like 10x growth.
Yeah.
Right. So the kitschy sayings like your network is your net worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I put something up last week, I think, on my social media that your spouse is your largest financial decision that you'll make in your lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that community, and again, if you go back to like seeing the people that have triumphed struggle biblically or even more historically, more current history, it's when great minds come together as a community that success and usually a 10x multiplication kind of thing happens,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
level three is really about starting to understand time. There's two important things that we have to wrap our head around when it comes to level three wealth. And one is that in order for me to make the most money in this life, I have to live as long as I possibly can live. Meaning, take care of your body, take care of yourself, right? Be
Sure.
healthy. Okay.
Yeah.
But understanding that even if I'm as healthy as I possibly can be, I still have a finite number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And once we stop seeing our ability to produce wealth as being tied to the number of years I'm alive and start seeing the wealth that we can start generating today and what
Mm-hmm.
could happen 3, 5, 10, or 100 generations from now,
Yeah.
that all of a sudden now that's I'm again a multiplication factor. It's not one lifetime, it's 10 lifetimes. And
Yeah.
once you master level three, then you realize, oh, well, if I want my daughter to be part of my legacy story and I want this to become a generational story, I have to raise her in a way to be a master of herself. I have to create a black belt level one, and then I want to put her in the community that I've created.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all level one, two, and three. Right. And I want to say that to say, hopefully, does that start to like you can't have a scarcity mindset and go into a community and be jealous of everybody else's wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make
You'll
sense?
be excommunicated
You
from
will
the
be
community.
excommunicated, and then you definitely you won't ever master level two wealth uh, generation. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
So
No, it definitely makes sense.
segue into the tools. You already talked about. I think there's perfect evidence that if we practice two things continuously, uh, sometimes it takes forced, like we have to force ourselves to do it. But if we practice two things over and over again, um, the abundance mindset muscle is going to grow, right? And that level, or that first thing you mentioned, was like the charity, right? The giving.
Yep.
And the other thing is I think it's through gratitude,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just constantly being grateful for what we have. So I run a guys group, and we've done this over the past couple months. Is the first month we just went and we tried our best to be as charitable as possible. And through the process, is what we were trying to do is put ourselves in position to be charitable, especially more so specifically with time. Like we were going to like volunteer in different places, and we were watching a community of people come to volunteer and seeing like how much more the group was able to do than just me and myself doing it alone.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
So
for sure.
charity in community was the goal. And then the next goal for the group was just to like every day write down 3 things that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And that's all we did. But it was wildly impactful.
Yeah, I think anytime you feel like you're a part of something, it enhances the experience, especially if it's in a positive direction. So charity, generosity, that's always, when it's a group of people coming together, you can move mountains. I'm a part of this workout group in Charlotte, and this one of the group members like lost a loved one, and he is a little older and needed like a swing set taken out of his backyard because it had been there for 40 years, and he needed to get rid of it. And so they all got together, and there was like 40 people at that dude's house. Now, do you need 40 people to take down a swing set? Probably not, right? This wasn't Fort Imagination or anything. This was just your regular set. But what do you think that guy's going to remember?
Yeah.
He's going to remember 40 people showed up when I needed some help.
Yeah. That's
So
amazing.
um, I think we take for granted sometimes the power of numbers, and especially people coming together and asking for help, and asking. I think one of the key components of this episode is, you got to be able to look introspectively and know where to ask for help,
Yeah.
and to know, hey, if you're stuck in this scarcity mindset, particularly in the area of money, I think that's why financial advisors can be so valuable to people, because we offer that third party perspective and get people to look at things a different way. Kind of from a practical perspective, to help practice abundant mindset with some of my clients, I'll basically set up. I love doing this with people, but let's say someone's got a savings account with some money in it. Let's say there's like 15,000 in there, right? I'll set up with them like another account and say, hey, let's take 10,000 or something and put it over into this account over here. And I'm just going to put it in a money market or something. And what ends up happening, we set a new goal and say, okay, let's try and get back to 15,000 in the original account. And they're always shocked about the 2 things happen. They're shocked about how fast they get back to 15,000 in that original account, because once I do, they're all like, oh, it's going to take us years to get back. And most of the time it takes months. Right. So they
Right.
get back to 15,000 account. And the second thing that happens is they've completely forgotten about the second account that's got 15,000 in it, or,
Mhm.
10. And
Yeah.
so that kind of breaks the mold of, everything that I see in front of me is not the whole picture. And, we kind of talked about this last week. I was sitting down with somebody in retirement planning, and I said, I did all this work for her and showed her cash flow and what it was going to look like in a couple of years. And I said, hey, none of this matters if you get a raise next year. If you get a
Yeah.
10% raise, this changes everything. And
Yeah.
that kind of woke her up and go, oh yeah, I never thought about that. And so there's ways as financial advisors, we can kind of build that in and coach clients into an abundance mindset, knowing that everything, where we are today is not a stagnant thing. And again, back to that balance, like we can feed that abundance mindset and use that to grow as individuals and grow as people.
I love that. I think, when we talk about how these different thought processes of thinking abundantly or thinking in scarcity can come and impact our finances. I, I think for me, helping, like when you have an abundant mindset,
Mhm.
right? Tie your abundant thinking to your goals, to your ability to create wealth, to your ability to deliver value,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You can give as much value as people want to receive, and nobody has to lose. And if you are constantly delivering value to people, if they want, this much value, where's my camera? This much value, and you give
Mhm.
them this much value, like, and you continually show up meeting people's needs, you're going to have revenue increase from that,
Yeah.
right? So in terms of like our abundant thinking, those are the kinds of places that I like to think abundantly. For me, where I typically think in more of a scarce, finite way is the time that I have,
Yeah.
right? Not the time that, like I have 100-year vision. I'm not going to be here 100 years from now,
Right.
right? So I don't think in scarcity about at the time that I have for my vision to take and manifest itself, right? Or
Mhm.
for God to manifest it, if you believe like I do. What what I do think though is that the time that I have available is finite. I do think scarce, like in the scarcity realm about that, for two reasons. One, I protect it because I want to give it to the people I love more than I would give it to people that don't value it.
Sure.
But two, I also want to make sure people understand how valuable it is. And if I highly regard it and I think it's valuable, if I'm giving you this much value and it's taking this much time, but this time is this valuable to me, guess what? We're going to exchange value
Yeah.
for value, right?
Yeah. And
So,
I think the scarcity mindset in this instance that you were talking about with a finite resource, which is our time, on this
I
earth,
think it's the only thing.
that is a super beneficial use of scarcity mindset
Exactly.
because that lights a fire under your butt to, go and do something and be impactful and help other people.
Yeah.
Um, and because that's the only way you achieve that 100-year, vision that you have.
And I think if
Um,
you're
s-
stuck in scarcity mindset too, like understand, I think that our brains and our whole being will sometimes try to protect us from things that we feel are dangerous.
yeah.
So I've worked with some clients in the past and they're just like, man, I just really can't get there thinking this way. I really
Hmm.
feel like I'm going to lose or somebody's going to lose. They're stuck in this like scarcity thought
Sure.
and cycle. And I'm like, okay, well, let's not dismiss it. Let's not even
Yeah.
be angry about it. Let's ask ourselves, what do we feel we are needing to be defensive about? What do we feel threatened by? What are we
Yeah.
afraid of right now that our body's
Hmm.
trying to protect us from? And I
Yeah.
think once we embrace that scarcity thinking can sometimes be there to protect us, and we can start to see it as an ally.
Hmm.
Maybe and through most of the time when I'm sitting down with clients and we start talking about that, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I do feel a little nervous about this, but it's maybe tied to something I went through 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be afraid of this time. Now all of a sudden it's
Right.
like, oh, well, thanks scarcity mindset for protecting me, but you're off the job right now because that's not a threat anymore. I'm in a different place in life. And just like a switch can happen. Instead of struggling back and forth, like, oh, I don't think that way. I can't get there.
Right.
Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, appreciate what you've been doing for me, scarcity mindset, but that threat's not here. I'm perfectly safe. And
Yeah.
then that abundant thinking can just take over.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge. Again, back to the introspective part. Like this only happens if you can, take an honest look at yourself and
Yeah.
figure out like how you think initially and then whether or not you need to change that thinking and then, that can push you one way or the other.
Yeah, I think it's about, that again, becoming a black belt in that level one wealth creation journey. And, to get there, some really, really simple tools is practice generosity
Yeah.
and practice gratitude. Tell
Yeah.
people thank you. Like right now, like, right. If you're listening to this right after the show's over, call somebody and just be like, hey, I really appreciate everything you're going through. And I'm so happy for everything that's going well in your life. And if you need anything, just let me know.
Yeah.
Um, and just do that, or just take out a pen and paper and write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
I
And I would
think doing that.
say, especially if you're having a bad day, like if you're having a bad day, call somebody and tell them that you appreciate them. And I
Yeah,
guarantee you your day will be better after you do
I
that.
agree. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So we really talked about, the benefits of being a kind of higher road thinker, thinking in that abundance mindset. We talked and we kind of gave permission for scarcity mindset to exist.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think
it's
if it's
going to
protecting
exist.
something super valuable, scarcity mindset is doing its job very well. Or if it's protecting you from something dangerous, it's doing its
Yeah.
job very well. If you're
Yeah.
stuck in a scarcity mindset mode and you shouldn't be,
Yeah.
right? Ask yourself why. Why are you being so defensive right now? Are you nervous about something? Is there something there? Is there something in your past? And then if you're just kind of in a funk, practice gratitude, practice generosity, and until it snaps. And we also talked about kind of the three levels of wealth generation, wealth creation, and that's mastering yourself, mastering your network, your relationships, and then mastering time. And if you become a black belt in all three of those things, you'll realize, oh, I can create a 500-year vision. I can create a 100-year vision too.
Yeah.
And
Let us know how you did it.
yeah, and let us know what it is, because that's phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
anything else?
Nah, dude, I think you summed it up awesome. And yeah, I like the where we're going with these podcasts lately. It's been a lot more positive, and
Yeah,
I think that's good for people. I think people need that. I think it's a breath of fresh air, especially with the world we live in, with the different media resources. So we just appreciate, on top of gratitude, we appreciate everybody listening.
yeah, I love it. All right, that's it. Ta ta. See you guys next week.
Adios.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.